Start the recording. All right. Thank you for your patience. Rich, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you. I'll begin now and welcome everybody. We are very glad to have you here today. Welcome to the May 15th, 2023 meeting of the Community Board 6 Housing and Homelessness Committee. My name is Rich Mintz and I'm the chair of this committee. Tonight, we are joined by District Manager Jesus Perez and Community Coordinator Brian Lafferty. This meeting is called to order at 6:38 p.m. And before I go on, I want to welcome Brian. This is the first meeting of ours that he is going to be managing behind the scenes. He is not new to Community Board 6. He has spent many years in city government, including several years at the Borough President's Office, and we are very familiar with him. We're glad to have him on our own staff now. So welcome, Brian, and thanks for your service today. As a reminder, New York state law now requires all community board members to have their cameras on and their first and last names displayed from the time the meeting is called to order until the time the meeting is adjourned. If your camera is not on and your name not properly displayed, you cannot count towards quorum. Members of the public, you can raise any questions or comments that you have through the Q&A feature of Zoom. I have some questions that were submitted in advance in connection to the first agenda item. And when we get to the point where our committee members are discussing the matter, we'll bring those questions up along with the ones that are submitted today. So thank you all for, if you are here, for the questions that you submitted in advance. We need a volunteer from among the committee members to take minutes tonight. If you can take minutes, please raise your Zoom hand now. Nad Kalani, I believe your hand is up.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it.
Thank you very much. You all should have received an email from the board office with a link to a doodle sign-up sheet for minutes takers at your committee meetings in 2023. For your convenience, the link to the sign-up sheet is being posted in the chat right now. We will now take attendance by roll call. Brian will conduct the roll call. Before you proceed, please mute yourself when you are not speaking, and then unmute yourself when Brian calls on you. Thank you.
Committee members, I will call your name and you will unmute yourselves. When your name is called, please say present. I will announce if there is quorum. Michael Devereaux.
He is excused tonight.
Thank you. Abigail Cruzmark.
Present.
Thank you. Sandra Leftoff. Sandra.
I believe she is out of town and excused. She notified us in advance. Let's confirm that after the meeting.
Thank you. Rich Mintz.
Present.
Thank you. Eric Goldberg.
Present.
Thank you. Nadine Kalani.
Present.
Thank you. Matthew Weintraub.
Present.
Thank you. And Maura Wong is excused. With 5 present of 8, we have quorum.
Thank you very much. So, Brian, would you please display the agenda for the members?
Yes.
Thank you. The agenda for tonight's meeting was distributed ahead of time by the board office and appears on the screen before you. If there's no objection, we will adopt the agenda as stated. Members of the committee, if you object to adopting the agenda, you may raise your hand through Zoom. Seeing no objections, the agenda for tonight's meeting is adopted. The minutes from the April 17th, 2023 meeting are still being reviewed and therefore will be up for adoption at the next meeting. Now some ground rules. In order to conduct an efficient meeting, let's observe a few rules. No one may speak until granted the floor. Committee members, if you have a question about committee business or wish to make a motion, please raise your hand through Zoom. The chat function should not be used for committee business or questions about agenda topics. All such remarks should be made on the record by raising your hand through Zoom. Chat should only be used to alert us to any technical difficulties you are having or to state in writing information like an email address that was already stated aloud on the record during the meeting. When a committee member is given the floor to speak, I will identify you and you can unmute yourself so that you can speak. Committee members are required by the state open meetings law to have their Zoom cameras on and your first and last name displayed during tonight's entire meeting. From call to order to adjournment. If you must step away from your computer briefly, you're required to leave your camera on. One personal note before we go on, if I am not looking at the camera, it's because I'm looking at the screen where the presentation and my notes are. It's nothing personal, so don't take it personally. We will proceed first into the first item, which is a presentation by Midway Living and the Department of Homeless Services on a new permanent homeless shelter for families with children at 130 East 39th Street. And before we proceed into that, I just want to note, this meeting is not a public hearing. This is an information session. Our community board doesn't have a role to play in deciding whether shelters are opened or where they are opened or how they are operated. That is a matter for the Department of Homeless Services and a formal contracting process, which is happening parallel to anything that happens tonight. We're here today to have an opportunity to hear from the operators and the Department of Homeless Services about specifically what is going to happen at this site, which is in our neighborhood, and to ask them questions. Our vice chair, Abby Kruzmark, will be collecting questions from the Q&A and passing them to me in an organized way so that we can present them to the presenters after the presentation in a way that doesn't duplicate questions. If you don't get your question answered, you are happy to follow. You are welcome to follow up afterwards with the Community Board 6 office with your questions or concerns. Our email address is help, is that right? At cb6.org. That's SIX, CBSIX. So thank you all for your patience. We have a lot to discuss tonight, and I'm going to pass now to the presenters. Brian, do you know who is going to be speaking?
Yes, Midway, I believe DHS will be speaking first to open up.
All right, DHS, you're all here, so take it away.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. My name is Haylene Olasco. I'm the Assistant Deputy Commissioner of the Department of Social Services. So thank you so much for having us all here this evening to do this presentation. I'll briefly introduce the team that's with us from both DSS as well as DHS and our partners at Midway Living. So I will first pass it on over to our Deputy Commissioner of Intergov to introduce herself.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Marika Scott McFadden. I'm the Deputy Commissioner, as Haley said, for Intergovernmental and Legislative Affairs here at Department of Social Services. And we have our colleagues, Marsha Horn, Leilani Irving, Tracy Brown, And I think we're going to start out with our presentation for Milton. Please introduce the Midway staff.
Hi, my name is Milton Schwartz, Midway Living. With me today is Scott Olwider, one of our board members. There is Rebecca Weinberger, which is our recreation coordinator. And I think soon we'll have Kathleen James, our case manager supervisor, join us as well. In addition, we have Jay Perez from GSS, our security team, to provide any clarification that's needed in the Q&A. Is DHS doing a presentation, or do you want me to start?
Well, have you start, Milton?
Okay. Good evening, members of the Community Board 6, members of the community that came out tonight. My name is Milton Schwartz, again, CEO of Midway Living. It's a pleasure to be here today to discuss our proposal that we're going to be opening up a shelter, a family with children shelter on 130 East 39th Street. We'll be calling it Giles Manor. Joining with me, obviously, I've introduced Scott Olwider, who is Assistant Executive Director of Bronxworks, where for over 30 years has served homeless individuals in New York. And I'm fortunate to be surrounded by a strong, experienced, capable team. None of us can succeed on our own, and I'm no different. My team and I rely on the help of one another and our partners at DHS and other city agencies to build strong organizations and strong communities. And that's one of the big reasons I'm here today, to build a strong community support. I'll start with a story. Many years ago as a child, growing up in Brooklyn, there was a woman in my neighborhood who got divorced. When her husband left, she and her children fell into a poverty. And watching her, I saw how in an instant, life could change and circumstances could jeopardize an entire family. And I knew that one day I'd want to help people like this woman. Today, I'm here to help fulfill that promise and tell you about personal commitment and that of everyone at Midway Living, to provide women, children, families, and the people of this community with a safe, secure, constantly monitored living environment that promotes positive change and growth and creates a minimal impact on the neighborhood. Why is Midway Living the right community partner for this project? The answer is integrity, effectiveness, and a proven track record. By profession, I'm an accountant with years of experience as chief financial officers and chief executive officer positions for businesses and cultural organizations. From CEO to CFO to my first job at Prudential Securities, all of this was great training, not just for an accounting or business. From the start, I learned the importance and necessity of creating a high performance culture that follows strict rules and the letter of the law, and does the right things at every level of the organization. Whether it's big things or small things, you need to get every step right. And you realize very quickly there are no small things, everything counts. Working with DHS and for the people of New York, delivering effective financial responsibility service with impeccable integrity is our highest priority. Based on my financial and operational experience and reputation in 2016, the city agencies asked me to take over an organization that had been plagued by corruption and asked me to take over the organization, clean up their finances, and in the most humane and effective manner, wind down and close the organization. This work involved managing over 30 sites, a staff of over 350 employees, and a budget of over $50 million a year, with multiple vendors and many complex financial and operational issues to address. I was first told that this project will be 2 months, but once the agencies realized that they were working with someone that quickly adapted and understood the operations and finances, they did not have the pressure anymore to shut it down as quickly as they originally planned. With the complexity and writing its mismanagement and corrupt finances, and humanely transitioning the residents and staff to other providers, the process took nearly 3 years. In the course of this work and seeing all the ways services to the homeless could be improved, I knew that not only was there a better way, but that I was committed to leading and executing that better version for homeless services. With that in mind, I founded Midway Living in 2017. The first task for Midway Living was to create an internal organization and methodically and purposefully lay the foundation to become a provider of homeless services. From my past experience as CEO and as CFO, I knew that before you get involved with bricks and mortar issues, a successful organizations need to create a sound, professional, ethical foundation, a clear business plan, and set of best practices. My work in 2017 was largely focused on the legal work and developing the operational plan for Midway Living and securing the necessary approvals to eventually provide housing to the homeless. For administrative purposes, we established a simple mailing address in Brooklyn, which is more than sufficient for our initial needs. As I continued my work, winding down the mismanaged organization, Midway Living provided limited service to disadvantaged families with a clear goal of eventually providing housing and social services to the homeless families. The Department of Homeless Services had seen the professionalism and integrity I brought to my work and understood that I'd bring an effective mission and ethically driven to the facilities Midway Living would operate in partnership with them. In 2002, Midway Living opened its first 2 shelters, called Penthouse at Park Avenue Manor, which is located in Brooklyn. This followed by the opening of Ditmar's Manor in Queens, which has 290 units alone, which is also for families and children. The same trust and confidence in the ability of me and my team to deliver the highest standard of care, quality, and respect for our neighborhoods and community safety standards in Brooklyn and Queens led to the city entrusting Midway Living to propose opening and operating the 130 East 39th Street Giles Manor facility in your community. As an elected trustee of my hometown in the village of Wesley Hills, I serve on a board very similar to yours. I personally know how vitally important it is to partner with members of the community, communicate clearly, honestly, and directly, and provide information in a timely manner. I know the importance of listening to concerns and responding responsibly. Also, as a member of the Auxiliary Police Department, and most importantly, as a husband and father, I'm committed to creating safe, secure, thriving communities, and that's exactly what I bring to work with the 39th Street Giles Manor project. As you'll hear through my presentation, creating a safe and secure environment for children, women, and families in our facility and in our neighborhood is embedded in everything we do. So let me tell you what Giles Manor is. It's a 200-unit residency that will provide temporary housing for families with children. And let me emphasize what Giles Manor is not. It's not a shelter for single men or women. It's not a shelter for mentally ill homeless people. Giles Manor is a family for children only, period. And our goal is to help these families find permanent housing and, if needed, full-time employment and life skills that can live independently productive lives. Now let's talk about security, safety. Because half of our family population is composed of small children, mostly under the age of 5, and because our mission is to deliver care to primarily children, women, and families, safety and security are of paramount importance. It's a non-negotiable, essential element in the successful operations of our mission. But it's equally vital that we create, promote, and sustain within our entire larger community. Safety and security outside our walls is necessary to support our residents getting on with their lives, finding permanent housing and employment, securely without distraction and with the support of the neighborhood. Our interest and your interest as members of this community are perfectly aligned. Here's how we achieve these safety and security goals. We provide professional licensed security from a professional security firm 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, within our doors and on the streets of our community. 9 guards will be on the premises at all times. 1 guard will be roving, conducting perimeter checks and monitoring the streets in the vicinity of the facility and reporting any loitering or issues that need to be addressed. Within Giles Manor, 5 guards, will be on the floors. 2 guards will be stationed at the main entrance, the security checkpoints, equipment to screen all visitors. 1 guard will monitor live multiple camera feeds in the security room. 1 security supervisor will be on the premises at all times. Strict rules and regulations will be enforced to maintain and promote security. For instance, no visitors except for professional staff are allowed at any time in the residents' apartments. Only official residents of Giles Manor can be in their apartments. Any contact with an outsider, friend, or family member must take place in the visitor's lounge on the ground floor, monitored by security within defined hours. Every resident unit will be inspected by our staff to ensure that all security and proper conduct are being followed within the units, as well as the public spaces inside and outside of the building. As good neighbors, we not only want to hear from you, we'll be actively involved, seeking out your feedback and insights. Our director will be on call 24/7, reachable by phone to address any concerns, and you can be sure that I'll be involved as well. For those of you who are interested, we'll be offering tours of our facility so you can see firsthand the security measures that are in place. I or my director will attend every community advisor board meeting to answer any questions and address any and all concerns that you might have. And as someone who's been an auxiliary police officer, I respect and value our police department. Myself or my director will attend the neighborhood regular police council meetings to listen, learn, share information, and help with any matters that arise. So as you can see, our approach to security is comprehensive within the walls of Giles Manor and throughout the surrounding community, because your interests and our interests are the same. And safety and security are a foundation for our success with our children, women and families, and with you, our larger neighborhood community. If you wish, in the Q&A, I could have our security coordinator go into more detail. I could have Scott Owater could go into more on the social services side, and I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have. This work is my personal passion, and I could go on for a long time, but today I wanted to begin by introducing myself and providing you with a description of Giles Manor's mission, the people we serve, and our approach to safety and security for all. And I can't say enough how safety and security for this community, for the families we serve, is a cornerstone of everything we do. At the beginning of my talk, I mentioned that there was a child with a woman in your neighborhood, my neighborhood, who got divorced. The father left the family, plunging them into a poverty. Now, you probably guessed correctly that this woman was my mother. I grew up poor without a father who was involved providing much, if any, support. I know that's what it's like to have all security suddenly taken away from you. In my case, we were fortunate enough to have aunts, uncles, and friends who stepped in to support us, to make sure that my brother and I were fed, clothed, and educated, and could make something of our lives. But not everyone is so lucky, and that's the big reason why I do what I do, and why creating Giles Manor as a residency for homeless children, mothers, and families is so important to me. I'm a man of faith, and the Bible is a line that goes, if your brother becomes poor and cannot maintain himself with you, you should support him. It's part of my tradition to welcome, embrace, and care for our brothers and sisters, whether they come from. And I have faith that when we care for others, support them, and provide the tools to live better lives, all of us as individuals and as a society and a community do better. By creating safe, secure, supportive environments where children, mothers, and families can grow and thrive, we are creating a better world for all of us. And I believe that by working together as a united community committed to safety, security, accountability, and human development, we'll create a thriving neighborhood for you and for your children, mothers, and families. I thank you for listening, and I appreciate everything that you guys welcomed us. I look forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Milton. I just wanted to thank you for that presentation, and I wanted to offer a few other points from DSS in order to clarify some of what you said in terms of what this facility will be and what it is not. I know there's a lot of news regarding the asylum seeker crisis that we are having. The city is currently working itself through. That crisis is a citywide effort, and it's being led by City Hall, as well as many of our sister agencies. And so I know that this conversation we're having is being held with the backdrop of that crisis, but this is not a emergency facility, which are opening throughout the city by not just DHS, but also, again, other agencies throughout the city, other sister agencies in order to support this population. And you will note that I said these are asylum seekers who are coming into our facilities throughout the city, and again throughout the HERC system, which is another system stood up by other agencies. And the asylum seekers, which is a population that have been let in, come across our borders, and they are seeking asylum. So they're in the process of going through the whatever that is in terms of their individualized cases, whether it is developing having a court case that they must attend to in federal court to work through their asylum pleas. They are doing that now. So it's important that we understand that this is a permanent shelter, a permanent facility, and as part of a facility, as Milton said, there will be a community advisory board attached to this facility, and we welcome folks' participation on that community advisory board. I'd also like to just walk quickly through the intake process, as this is a families with children shelter. The shelter will house families with usually small children, but up to 18. But usually we know that this population, there are usually small children involved, and the intake process includes a thorough assessment that happens at our PATH intake center, which is a state-of-the-art center. At that point, there's an assessment made of health, education needs, all the needs of all members of the family are identified, and that is part of our usual intake process, and it will lead to placement. And it's the placement allows for this facility, that placement will be made through our PATH intake center. So those are just two of the points that I wanted to clear up in terms of just how the intake process happens, and also, again, the crisis that the city remains in, but also to let folks know that this is to remind you that it is a different kind of shelter, but it is always part of our need to house New Yorkers, whether they're here one day or more than one day, or our native New Yorkers. It is a part of that system. So I know there are questions, and I just wanted, we're happy to answer those questions.
So is this the end of the formal presentation part of the meeting, and am I taking the leadership back? I just want to make sure you folks have spoken who want to speak.
Well, yes. I'm going to say yes, Richard.
Okay, great. So I have, we have some questions that have come in from the public, but I have a few to start with. And some of these may be for DHS or DSS. Some of them may be for the operator. I'll try to be organized. First, I'm gonna ask, can someone talk a bit about the layout of the inside of the building? I know that this was formerly a hotel, and so it's hotel rooms that are being converted to service shelters with individual kitchens. What kind of public space is available for the residents inside the building, and how is that going to be used?
The facility has a full floor that we're going to be using. We're actually installing laundry services as well. This will allow the residents to do the laundry in-house. There is a whole section of community service space that we plan on utilizing. And regarding the renovations, obviously, like you mentioned, Mr. Richard, the rooms are hotel rooms. In order to convert it to a family with children, kitchens have to be installed. That means plumbing has to get redone, electricity has to get redone, and that's the reason why nothing's going to happen before the summer, end of the summer. That's what the renovations are happening right now.
So these will be crowded spaces, but they will be safe and they'll have the basic facilities that families need to live in them.
Correct.
Right. Okay. So that's the facility itself. And just to clarify, that means that families will be making their own meals, right? There won't be shared meals. All right. So it's not like an emergency shelter. These are short-term quarters for the families to live in.
Correct.
Okay. Great. In terms of the goal of moving families out into permanent housing, how does that typically happen during the trajectory of a family living in one of your shelters?
You want to answer that?
Yes, I'll jump in. Obviously, you haven't opened yet, what we look at, as I said at the beginning of the process of the intake process, is an assessment which involves in connecting clients to whatever services that they are eligible for. It may include a voucher that will help them move on to affordable an affordable housing, where they can have a shopping letter or something of that nature, where they can then facilitate a move out into the community at large. So it's the process will take, for some, it's a shorter process than others, depending upon what they need to get them to the appropriate preparation point. But it will also take as long as it takes to get them like fully brought up to speed, and then also it may include, the children and school registrations and things like that to be considered.
What kind of social and supportive services are going to be provided at the facility for the residents?
So this is a permanent shelter. So this is our regular services that we offer. There'll be housing, input and specialists that are there that will help them to get what they need for housing. We always have DOE on staff, so that they will come in periodically to help registration of the students, making sure that they are appropriately in the schools that they need to be, and also set up transportation. Many of the services that are not available in the facility are also they're referred out, because we know that most folks, the goal is permanency. So we don't want to house everything under the same roof. So we do make referrals into the community, and that would include healthcare and mental health services as well. To the extent that we, identify any issues, those are addressed immediately. So the full complement of services will be at this facility.
Thank you. I'm going to ask one more question that came from the community of Milton, and then I'm going to see if members of our committee have any questions they would like to ask, and then I'll go back to the rest of the public questions. The question that I have is, someone asks, what kind of rules are there that will apply to people who live in the shelter? What sort of enforcement will there be, and what are the consequences of people's not complying?
I mean, I'll talk a little bit about the rules.
The
general rules. We have a good neighbor policy, what we refer to as a good neighbor policy, where we individually, as folks are intaked into the facility, they get to know what is expected in the community, no loitering, that type of thing. But, obviously they are residents of the community. So, being on the street or being around the facility is not against the rules, but we always want to be good neighbors whenever we come into the community, just like everyone here on this Zoom. You want to be considerate, you want to have those things, and those are addressed immediately. And to your question about what are the repercussions, sometimes things are not, this is not a good fit for whatever reason. It's not a good fit. Maybe, it's not at the right time. Something happens, and we want to be conscious of that and making both our clients comfortable, other residents comfortable, and then also the community comfortable. So if it's not a good fit, we seek to make a change, and that may include a transfer. And I'll
Okay.
I'll open it up to. I think that's pretty much the summary of it.
Yeah.
But if I could.
If there's anything that people from Midway would like to add to that, please do, and then we'll go on to the next topic.
I think we summed it up pretty well. Thank you.
All right, very good. Are there other people from Midway on who you would like to introduce before I pass to the committee members?
You should do step before, but if there's any questions related to security, I do see.
Okay, so they're on then. That's great. That's great. All right, so I'm going to ask if any of our committee members would like to raise any questions or have any comments. This is an opportunity to do that before I proceed with some of the questions from the public. And I don't see hands up. I just want to make sure from Brian that there are not hands up that I can't see.
There are no hands.
All right, thank you. So I'm going to go on with some more questions from the public. And first, I'm going to ask, and this is a general question for DHS about the process by which shelter contracts are awarded. What is the general process, and how is the decision made as to where shelters are cited? I know that part of it has to do with what facilities become available and what operators are qualified to run them. But I know that there is some concern in our community about a density of service facilities in this particular neighborhood. And so I'd be interested in hearing a little more about the selection process.
So you're absolutely correct that the citing process is an open RFP, which means it's a rolling. It's always open. And what happens is that the landlord and the nonprofit or the builder nonprofit will bring an option to DHS for scoring and for the to see if it's a viable a project. Know that DHS seeks only qualified nonprofits, and our ultimate goal, as in this facilities as well as others, is to bring the best service to our clients. So it only helps us to connect with providers who bring the utmost and the best service. So once we've scored that out and we determine that this can be achieved with the provider, we then can move on through the process. And those who are familiar with procurement throughout the city government knows that there are many other ins and outs of which a project can fall through and then become not viable, but it is a process that includes that. And I understand the question of density, because but we unfortunately have a need for shelters. Unfortunately, not just because of the current crisis that we're in with our asylum seekers, but we have an affordability crisis in New York City. Housing is an issue. Folks are under the best conditions, rent burdened, and unfortunately find themselves in this a predicament in need of shelter. And so because of that, and because our census drives our need, we are continuously citing shelters when they come to us in this format that we feel that it will be a great service to our clients. You're on mute, Richard.
Thank you. I have a couple of related questions. I'm just packaging these all together. Where is this contract in the contracting process? Has the contract been fully approved by the agencies that need to approve it?
As far as I'm concerned, as of today, and I don't want to speak, it is still in the cycle, and and it's in the award cycle. I'm not exactly sure what that means, like, whose desk gets on right now, but it is within the cycle, and unfortunately, we can't always know every step, but it's going to hit someone's desk. So.
Are there any public comment opportunities remaining that people should know about in this community?
Well, I understand that folks have been able to comment at the contracting stage. At that point, that's usually an opportunity to speak just to the four corners of the contract. And then so that doesn't usually, I know sometimes there's a misnomer in that people believe it to speak out or for the actual project, is mostly to address those contracting issues, why this, why that. And I know folks get a chance to engage at that point. And then we always come to you at points like this, where we want to continue to have engagement with the community on a rolling basis. So
to help shape the way the thing rolls out.
Yeah.
But the site selection and contracting itself is a professional operation that happens within DSS. It's
Absolutely.
Not, okay, great. There were some concerns raised that Midway, based on public records, is a pretty small organization, and this is a big apple for it to take a bite out of. I don't have the background here, but this question says that we're talking about a 5-year contract of around $150 million. If that's the case, how does that compare to the sizes of contracts to run other shelters in New York City? That's a question for DHS. And why does Midway feel comfortable taking this on, given its size? So I guess, Marika, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I will definitely let Milton talk about his company. I know that, hearing his story, there's a lot of heart there. So I know he will want to talk about that. But like I said, we want to bring the best service that we can to our clients. We think that this is a comparable contract because it meets the needs of our clients. We don't I think that is out of size for what we are getting, 200 families and with children. We think that it is right around what we need. As you know, just like anything, these types of things fluctuate between communities, building costs, and things like that. Those are things that are intricate to the contract itself, but DHS feels comfortable embarking on this with Midway because we have confidence in their ability to deliver the services that we request and require for our clients. So take it over, Milton.
Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for the high praise. Like I said in my opening remarks, I'm not new to the homeless shelter. I've been doing it for many years. I might have done it on a different umbrella. So I do have the experience and I could deliver, and DHS has the confidence in me, and I appreciate that, and I definitely will deliver. When it comes to that number of 150 million, people get confused and they start thinking, wait, it's a big contract. Keep in mind, those are 10 years numbers. So it's not really a yearly contract. Those are based on the full contract, which was 9 years, excuse me. And we have currently operating a shelter of 290 units right here in Queens, and it's a lot more. And keep in mind as well, the majority of the funding of any contract goes pretty much to the rent, which is really a pass-through. So as much as people are thinking that we're managing that much money, it's not managing that much. We manage the social service side, and everything else is pretty much a pass-through type of entity. I hope that clarifies your question.
Yeah, that's good. Thank you. I apologize for this, but I'm going to bounce back to Marika for one more DHS question, and that is, when you make siting decisions, do you take into account things like the capacity of schools, what sorts of services are available in the neighborhood, like grocery and laundry, and so forth, or is it purely based on where buildings are available?
We absolutely take schools into account in terms of we partner with DOE. As I said, it's an intricate part of the process, the intake process, and especially with families with children, we know we're gonna get a population of kids that need services within the school system. So we have I always get it wrong, but we work with the Department of Education and the unsheltered students unit, which is the wrong word. Don't use that the name, but they basically have the connection with us so that they speak to this population directly. They know what they need, and they work with the schools to make sure they have the appropriate number of seats. If they need language services, they do that, and also if they need any services in terms of bringing them maybe even up to speed on with learning issues, that all of these things are taken in full consideration. And in terms of the other things that you mentioned, you know, it is a part of what we think about when we think about siting, but we then also consider that some things come to a community in terms of filling gaps as well. So we know maybe there might be a service or a grocery that may come in as a result of seeing that there's a population that is needing of that. So we take a lot of things into consideration, not just the snapshot, but also what we feel like will be future projections as well.
Thank you. And one final question related to that. One of our community members asked if the fair share analysis has been prepared for this shelter.
Well, and as you know, we once that document is prepared, we share it with the community board and elected officials. And I know that this document, it really outlines like what we look at in terms of what we when we do sightings. But again, I always have to lean into our census is not going down. We need facilities, and sometimes the fair share shows us the best case scenario, and we absolutely present on that. Like we see that and we look at that, but then our census drives us as well, and so it's a balancing act that we do. We balance all of those things into consideration.
Okay, thank you. So I'm gonna switch gears and ask some questions of Midway. But before I do, I want to make sure none of our committee members have questions they would want to ask. This is an opportunity to raise your hands. And we have no hands up, so I'm going to keep going. So one question that a couple of people asked, and I think this is a Midway question, is is the shelter guaranteed to remain a shelter for families with children, or is it possible that the occupancy could change at some future date?
The amount of money that the landlord is putting into this facility, the goal is to have this as a shelter as long as possible. My hope and my dream would be that the shelter crisis doesn't exist, then we could actually convert this to low-income housing. But unfortunately, it's not solved, and this is not a temporary site. This is a site that's going through the contract process of having it 9 years, and hopefully with DHS approval, renew them afterwards.
But there's no possibility that it, for example, would become a shelter for single men.
No.
At some point in the future, because your company specializes in sheltering families with children.
Correct.
Okay.
I can't say, Rich, I don't want to say guaranteed. If there was no family situation where there's no family, children in the homeless system, then you never know. DHS might decide to say, hey, we have no crisis in the families, we have a crisis in the single. That's the only way I can see something like that happen, but that was never a conversation until now, and I don't see that as a possibility at this time.
And thank you for clearing that up, Milton. I don't want us to to concretely say no, because again, we do projections. This is what we need at the moment. This is what we need. We have no intentions of doing anything different, but never is a long time.
Fair enough. Someone was asking about whether the population would be asylum seekers, and I know that you addressed this already, but I wanted to respond again that this is a shelter that is part of the normal DHS residential system for families with children, and its population will be drawn from the whole of the DHS population that you serve. Absolutely.
Thank you.
So, people are asking what sorts of support might be available in the facility for parents. When parents have to work, what happens to children when they get off school? Is there a space where children can study? Is there childcare so that parents can go to job interviews? This is a general question, I think, about the shelter system, but it's a question I have too. And so I wonder, I don't know which of you would like to take it.
I'll let Milton answer if he has he's not open. It's not, the facility is not completely open. So specific.
There's no uniform answer from DHS. My personal opinion and my personal goal is to have not only recreation and after school program throughout the facility itself. We do linkage agreements if we have to for childcare. But my goal is to really have childcare on premises as much as possible. And when you see these children, what they do project-wise, you see the smile on their faces. I don't want to give that away to somebody else. I'd rather have that in-house.
How do you handle this sort of thing at Penthouse and Ditmars Manor?
So we don't have that issue at Ditmars Manor and Park Avenue. Rebecca Weinberger is there, and she could, if you want to chime in and discuss what you do as far as in the recreational side.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Weinberger. So we currently have a after-school program in Ditmars Manor running from 4 to 7 p.m. And we help out with homework. We have planned activities. We have an hour of free play just so that the kids can really have the opportunity to explore their interests and hobbies through this sort of structured play. In Park, we are currently having many different family activities. We have the kids come in to do Mother's Day cards, Valentine's Day cards, game nights, and any sort of thing that they are asking for, I try to accommodate. Recently we did bracelet making. So we are really trying to, provide for them a way that they can tap into their interests and have the opportunity to not be cooped up in their unit, but really explore that recreation side.
Right. Okay. Thank you. And related to that, we had someone ask, what kinds of donations of supplies would be useful for people in a facility like this? And I mean, I guess this is a question for Milton. It's like school supplies, toys. I don't have experience with this. And so I'm wondering what sorts of donations you welcome from the community once the facility is open.
Yeah, we definitely welcome any donation. The only things we don't accept is clothing, used clothing. We do have to be concerned with bed bugs or anything to that nature if somebody ordered before. So anything packaged or anything clothes, toys, coloring books, we give them out. DOE has been very helpful in providing those supplies as well. Any donations comes out, the donor wants to come into the facility, they could come and take a look at the smile on the faces when they give it out. The only things we request is no pictures to be taken. The DHS doesn't allow us to have pictures of the children, but anything is welcome. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. I'm going to ask you a few more about the facility itself. Some people are concerned about the physical condition of the sidewalks outside the building. One of the neighbors notes that they're piled with trash right now, and would like to know what the plan is to manage the orderly nature of the sidewalks outside the building.
So I know there is a scaffolding there. The goal is to have that removed. I've spoken to the contractor of the landlord, and they're working on that. If there is a garbage issue, like, I'm available, I'll reach out, I'll make a phone call, and I won't be there tomorrow.
Yep. Okay. Someone was asking about play space. You talked about the common spaces inside the building. Is there a common space that's suitable for children to use inside the building when there's nowhere for them to go outside?
Once we're set it up, obviously it's not constructed yet, but there's ample space, like I said, for a laundry room, for a common area, and for children area as well. My goal is to bring somebody in once the construction is done. We'll bring somebody in to plan it out. I think, Rebecca, I think you mentioned you have someone that could come in and design it for us. And once it's designed, we're definitely going to put it into place.
Thank you. I'm just going to run through a few of these quickly because I want to get most of them covered. Someone suggested that you make the street front space be neighborhood facing with something aesthetic and useful, like a coffee bar that might be available to both residents and of the building and residents of the neighborhood. So that's something to take under advisement. Someone asked to have the scaffolding come down. You've just addressed that. You don't want it there any more than the neighbors do.
They're waiting for the facade inspection. I think that's the only thing they're waiting for. And once that's done, we can remove it.
Okay, great. Someone asked about what's sort of sensitive. Well, let's make this a general security conversation. You went into some detail about the security measures that you're taking and the way you're planning to deploy staff. Someone asked whether the security staff will have sensitivity training to make sure the children don't feel over-policed in their temporary home. And I'm wondering if that's something that you think about in your training.
Jay, are you on? Do you want to comment on that? I know there's training going on, but I think Jay could really go into more details of security.
Yes, I'm on. We, as Milton mentioned before, we hire site supervisors. The security supervisor has been properly trained in both de-escalation issues as well as the sensitivity training, so that he makes sure he passes on to his staff. So he's closely monitoring to make sure that the security guard that he oversees actually treat everyone with respect, and also to be sensitive to what their needs are and what that type of, this type of security that we deal with shelters is different than anywhere else that we do security. So that's why we specifically to shelter security, we provide this training to all the supervisors. Okay, so that's one question. Is there anything else that you would like to say about security? This is your opportunity to toss anything into the conversation you'd like to. Or do you feel like Milton covered it?
Yeah, I think he covered pretty much in the beginning. He addressed, the amount of guards that we're going to be using. And as he mentioned, every shift has a supervisor to make sure he oversees the staff. And the supervisor would come with very good experience in handling this type of security, specifically shelter security.
Just keep in mind that any number I gave out, if the security is not met, we increase that number. We feel if we see anything, loitering going on, it's not being addressed, they'll come in. Obviously, we're doing it now. When we have an intake process and we need more security, we increase security throughout. And the same thing here, any facility that we open up, in the beginning, we have a lot more security and we basically customize it based on the need on the ground.
Okay.
Correct. Milton is very receptive. I mean, we are the security side, so we have the expertise to make sure we make recommendations as needed. And he's receptive to making sure that, we provide the adequate security.
Okay. So I have two more, thank you. I have two more questions from the community, which I'm going to pass along. Then I'm going to ask our members if they have any more issues they would like to raise. And then I'm going to move on to our next agenda topic. The first one is people are concerned about traffic, which is obviously the case everywhere in Manhattan. But specifically, someone asked whether there is likely to be a problem with school buses idling in front of the building. When I think about the location, it doesn't seem like that would even be realistic because it's 39th is a narrow street and Lexington is busy. But I wonder if you have any comment on traffic management.
I'll jump in just in terms of, we work closely with DOE in especially when it comes to transportation of students. So if this, although there's not an anticipated issue, if it does become a issue, we look to the community board, we look to folks reaching out to Milton, and then we have that conversation with the DOE about how to configure pickups and drop-offs so that it's not creating some type of ill effect on the community. Obviously, there are the known knowns and then there are unknown knowns, and
Yes.
at this point we don't anticipate that to be an issue. We're New Yorkers, right? A lot of get on the subways, we commute with their children on the subways to their preferred school, or if you're lucky enough they can walk a couple of blocks. But
What's the closest subway station? It's the 7 train entrance to Grand Central, right? At between Lexington and 3rd on 42nd Street. It's actually pretty close to the subway. I bet there'll be some transit use.
Yeah, they're probably. I mean, we work with our providers, and they're such great partners. And what you mentioned brought up a case. It was a busy street. We got a call from, in this case, it was an elected official who said this is a really busy street. We worry about the students who cross to a walking path, and in that case, the security came out at school dismissals and so forth, just to make sure the students came appropriately across the street. So there are opportunities that extend to what the community needs and also what the clients need.
Well, the community board will also intervene if we can on behalf of the children. I know we got a crossing guard reinstated at PS 116 recently, so we have some soft power in the neighborhood, even though we can't actually make everything happen. So the last question, and this is more of a suggestion for Midway, someone suggested that you participate in the Grand Central Partnership BID in order to get access to services from Grand Central Partnership, like maybe extra garbage collection and so forth. So I'm just passing that along.
I definitely would love to participate.
Yeah. And there are neighborhood associations, you probably are aware. Murray Hill Neighborhood Association will be knocking on your door if they haven't already, and will want to know, be kept up on what you're doing. So,
great, thank you.
All right. I don't see any hands up from our members, so I'm going to thank our presenters for being so thorough. If you are a member of the public and you have a question that did not get addressed, I tried to run through most of them, but you can contact our office at help@cb6.org. That's cbsix.org, and they will pass them along. We will let the community know as soon as we have information about the formation of the community advisory board for this shelter. And I look forward to having a tour of the facility when it's safe for members of the public to enter. So thank you all for coming.
Pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
I'm apologize for jumping right in, but I'm going to move on. I would like the permission of my committee members to defer agenda item 2, which is a discussion of affordable housing sites, until next month's meeting, so that we have a few minutes to take up another item of new business. And I'm going to ask our committee members to raise their hands if they have any objection to that. All right, so we are going to proceed. And just to be clear, our visitors do not have to stay. You're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. The issue that I wanted to bring up briefly as a new business item is the fact that we have heard that there's a proposal to temporarily house some asylum seekers in the police academy building, which is mostly empty, on East 21st Street between 3rd and 2nd Avenues. Sorry, 2nd and 3rd Avenues, which is it's mostly empty. It is not in great physical condition. Those of you who are veterans to this community board will remember that we had our office in the basement of that building several years back. It's a little creepy in there, but it is open space that is currently available, and the mayor has asked all city agencies to make space available on an emergency basis for very short-term housing of arriving asylum seekers. This facility is not configured for long-term housing, and people in it will not be comfortable, but it is arguably better than a tent. And DHS has said that their goal is to move people out into proper facilities within 48 hours if they can. So it'll be very short-term. I don't have any other information. This is developing, and this is not just something that's happening here. There are some high school gym annexes and that sort of building in other parts of the city that are being used in similar ways. But I wanted to at least bring this to the attention of the committee and ask if anyone has any questions or comments from among our committee members. Abby, your hand is up.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think this might be a good time to write a resolution on emergency shelters for asylum seekers. I think there's been a lot of developments of this in the last, obviously last year, but last 2 to 3 weeks. So I'm happy to take that on, and we can further connect offline. But
when someone volunteers to write a resolution, I am not going to say no. So why don't you do that? You and I can speak in between meetings, and then you can present something next time if you have something.
That sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments on this topic? I don't see any hands, and we've run a long time. So I'm going to ask if there are any objections to my adjourning the meeting with no other topics tonight. So please raise your hand if you have an objection. I see Abby scrambling to put her hand down. I don't see any hands. So I'm going to adjourn the meeting with my thanks to both our presenters, to the members of the public, and to the members of the committee. The adjournment time is 7:46 p.m. and I look forward to seeing you all at our next meeting. Thank you.
Thanks, Rich.
Bye-bye.